A lot of real estate agents, loan officers, title companies, escrow companies, they use all this jargon that I can't even understand. It's just kind of tricky. If you could, I would love for you to be able to kind of put a definition to that for us, please.
You are able to buy up to a 4-unit property, okay? So some people may look at that as like a small kind of apartment complex, but for the loan purposes, you can utilize that for your VA loan. And other things that you can do is you may be able to, depending on your area, purchase a property that is what we call a mixed use property. A lot of times in short-term rentals, they're just thinking Airbnb style rentals, right? But you can also look into renting out your property to traveling nurses and traveling professionals through different networks that way. Put your property on one of those listings and you're gonna get top dollar for that property. Hello and welcome to the Prepare to Compete podcast, where we talk all things VA benefits, real estate, entrepreneurship, and more. And I'm Kayvon Jones, civilian patriot, entrepreneur, and host of the #1 veteran podcast.
Hello, and I'm Kenneth Davis, CEO of Veterans for Veterans, and continuously a veteran servant. Hello and welcome back to the Prepare to Compete podcast. And in this segment, we're going to go ahead and talk about the VA home loan entitlement. This entitlement is going to be very, very powerful for building wealth and also streamlining your family's to financial success here in 2025. Really excited to unlock some of those informational jewels for you. Here we go.
That's right, Kenneth, because the VA loan is just not about purchasing a home. It's really about building wealth for you and your family and really understanding that it's not just for veterans also. Our active duty service members can take advantage of the VA loan as well, and also qualifying spouses and different things of that nature. So we're going to unlock everything that you need to know for 2025.
So Kayvon, before we get into the strategies, I really want you to be able to provide a quick refresher for our audience and veterans and family members of veterans, because as you mentioned, this isn't just for veterans, all right? There's so many different access points to be able to utilize this VA home loan. But could you please go ahead and give our special audience here a refresher here?
Absolutely. We definitely want to make sure that we're understanding the core basics of the VA loan product. So as we know, it is for purchasing of a home, right? So we definitely know that with a 0 down payment, which is very powerful. And of course, you also are able to avoid private mortgage insurance, which makes purchasing that home that much more affordable. And also with the VA loan, you're accessing real competitive interest rates, okay, below the market interest rates for conventional loan. And you have that solid guarantee backed by the Department of Veteran Affairs, ensuring your loan against default. And it really provides a very comprehensive way to purchase a home, knowing that, hey, when you put an offer on there, it's going to be secure that you're going to be able to close on that product.
Most definitely, most definitely. I just, there's so many different ways, right, to utilize your VA home loan entitlement. Obviously primary purchase, right? But not only primary purchase, when we're talking about that as your primary residence, which that is the ultimate, deliverable for your home. But now we all know that active duty members have access to this loan. We understand that strategies are a way to peel back some of the successes, but could you just kind of give us an overview, just a quick reference of how this home loan can be used more than once, or can it?
No, absolutely. Very good point there, right? Because if you're purchasing a home, especially as an active duty service member, you're younger in your career and you may be scared to use the VA loan because you're going to make more money in the future and you're going to want to purchase a larger home for you and your family, because at that point you may not have one. But what you can do with the VA loan is you can actually utilize that product more than once. And a lot of active duty service members and veterans just don't know that and know how powerful that can be. And, something that I love talking about here on this channel is house hacking, right? And that can really be a way to give you a gateway into house hacking, right? And understanding that you can go in, buy that condo, townhouse, or that starter home, and then be able to use that VA loan again. There's going to be some different strategies in that where you could actually have more than one loan at a time, or you could refinance out of that loan at a later date. So a lot of different options for you when using that product.
House hacking. Could you provide the definition of house hacking? A lot of real estate agents, loan officers, title companies, escrow companies, they use all this jargon that I can't even understand. It's just kind of really tricky. So if you could, I would love for you to be able to kind of put a definition to that for us, please.
Absolutely. So, house hacking, I would say, is when you're purchasing owner occupied property and you're going in there with an investor mindset, right? You're going in knowing that, hey, this is not going to be my forever home. I plan on making this property a rental property in the future. And so I'm doing that to potentially maybe live in this house for a year or two and then refinance that to get another property and subsequently converting that to a rental, right? But there's so many strategies involved in house hacking. So the most popular one is when someone recommends you to get a multifamily property, okay? So it's going to be a 2 to 4 unit property where you're able to live in one unit and rent out the other units, right? So that's the kind of core essence of house hacking. And at that point, you're utilizing those tenants in those other units. So let's say you get a fourplex. You live in one unit, you have 3 other units that are going to be rented out, right? And typically, if you're doing this right, the rental amount from those 3 units is able to pay the entire mortgage. So you're actually able to live for free in that property.
Okay, okay. So basically, all in all, so you're telling me that you are able to buy a multi-use property or a fourplex per se.
Absolutely. And I like how you said that, Kenneth, there. So, yeah, you are able to buy up to a 4 unit property. Okay. So, some people may look at that as like a small kind of apartment complex, but for the loan purposes, you can utilize that for your VA loan. Okay. And other things that you can do is you may be able to, depending on your area, purchase a property that is what we call a mixed use property. You see that a lot in the East Coast and maybe Midwest and different things where you may have a storefront at the bottom and it has an apartment or kind of condo style living place on top, right? So typically, if you're using a mixed use property, the square footage of the mixed use property needs to be a little bit larger than the retail space. So if it's like 51% and then 49% of the square foot can be for that mixed use space.
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, I asked that because again, a lot of my East Coast sailors, or tell me about their purchasing power on their VA home loan entitlement for those who are using a very, very, very small amount. But for those military members that tell me about those properties, I always wanted to know, like, how expansive is it, right? Because us West Coast sailors, soldiers, and airmen alike, it's not so readily available when you're talking about those fourplex properties and so on and so forth. So that's why I always want to make sure we put a definition to the audience so they know. But again, by being able to generate that extra cash flow for rental, right? Because you're renting out the other properties, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're able to do that. And I would say for the individuals that are on the West Coast, where you may want to look where you're able to find those mixed use or even duplex, triplex, or fourplex properties are going to be usually sometimes in the downtown areas of your cities, right? Especially with those mixed use. depending on zoning, you may or may not have those kind of duplex, triplex, or fourplexes, but definitely you may be able to find some mixed use properties down there as well. But another gem that I'm going to give you today that a lot of people don't consider when they're looking into house hacking is just merely buying a larger single family home and just renting out those individual rooms. Now, of course, now with that, the qualification is going to be a little bit different, right? Because when you are doing the fourplex, you're able to get 75% of the rental value towards your income, right? Okay, but if you can qualify for a 4 or 5 bedroom home on your own based on your income, and let's say you qualify for it, but you're not trying to pay that much in your mortgage, right? That's okay. You can house hack by still purchasing that property, getting some sailors or airmen or kind of wherever you're at, right? And have them roommating in that property. And guess what you just did? Now, when you're looking to start your family and kick them out, now you done locked in your future family's home in today's interest rate and today's prices, and you just house hacked your way into a very affordable property, right? Because it may be market rate when you purchase that in 2025, but we're looking at 2030, 2035. When you start that family and you put them out, that house that you paid $500,000 for is worth $800,000. And guess what? You already bought it, so you're not paying that value for it. So that's a supreme house hack that a lot of people don't think about there.
Wow, yeah, yeah. And again, I think a lot of junior personnel are a little afraid to purchase, not knowing where that rent is coming from or that mortgage is coming from, right? Or the tenants and where that rent is coming from. But guess what? You're actually housing other military members, so you know where the rent is coming from and when it's going to be paid. So, should be paid, I will say. But there's always risk amongst any, again, business or deal, but this is very minimal, right? When we're talking about a space of primary residence where you will need housing anyway, well, why not? So that's an incredible strategy. But there's so many different things that I really, really want to uncover and unpack. Obviously, when we're building a real estate portfolio, there's going to be so many components of thoughts. I want to kind of go back to what you mentioned in regards to going into a thought of purchasing a home in our investor mindset. What does that exactly mean? Could you peel back that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of times when we go and we're purchasing a house that we're going to live in, we're looking at, okay, what's the curve appeal? Do we like the color of the cabinets? Is the master bedroom going to fit that California king that we have, right? We're thinking about all of those different superficial things, and we're not looking at it as an investment. We're just looking at, okay, what do we like, right? We're not thinking about, hey, is this property in a desirable area now, and or is this going to be a future desirable area years to come, right? Has it reached its full potential already? And evaluating all those things. So that's what investors are thinking about when they're purchasing a property. Typically, an investor is going to look at a property where they're going to look to purchase in a C or D class neighborhood, right? A more lower income neighborhood or a more affluent neighborhood. It's like they don't really want to be in the middle of that, right? Because that's where you're going to make the most money. If you're able to purchase a house in a struggling area that has potential over the next 5, 10, 15 years, right? Or if you're in a newer area that's growing and developing, right? So if you are familiar with your city, you know where these areas are, right? For example, I'm here in Las Vegas. We know that there's a lot of growth and development in the southwest of Las Vegas, for example, right? They built the new Raider Stadium that way, and they just start growing out, and they have future plans of doing a lot of different things, right? So I've known that for the last 5 years, and most people have known that for at least the last 5 years. So it's like, hey, that's an area that is a nice area that's up and coming. You would look at that in that kind of standpoint. And then if you're looking at an area that's, hey, on the cusp of maybe doing some different things as the city grows, we'll be looking at North Las Vegas here, right? So that's an area that, hey, you know what? You may be able to get a good price right now, but it has a lot of future growth and development as the politics change, as the city gets larger and different things of that nature. So you want to be building those type of strategies. And of course, with North Las Vegas, hey, they put that new big VA hospital out there. So that is a good key for veterans to be able to kind of consider some things that way.
When we are going into a purchase, and again, a purchase, it changes for everyone, right? We don't know everyone's circumstance, but essentially, to be able to get the biggest bang for our buck, we want to kind of go into it with a investor mindset. Investor mindset, kind of understanding what is going to be here in the next 5, 10, 15 to 20 years, right? But now, what if we are in a city that's a little bit older and a little bit underdeveloped? Then what do we do?
With a city that's a little bit older, you want to look at the trends, right? Because if it's a city that's a little bit older, like Chicago, different parts of New York, different things of that nature, well, the cycles just continue to repeat themselves, right? So, people move into downtown, then it becomes overpopulated and ran down, and they go to the suburbs and they come back, right? That cycle is going to continue to cycle. That's really is what's going to happen there. So you want to kind of pay attention to those different trends of like, okay, and look where you see the growth happening. If you see a Starbucks coming here, or you see, a McDonald's coming there, or Home Depot coming in different areas, like these are large corporations that they've done the work for you already. In fact, when you look at certain areas, you would see before it became a bustling area, you would see like, hey, McDonald's was there 5 years before anybody else. A Home Depot was there 5 years before anybody else. Why? Because when you get a new property, that's where you're going, right? You're going there, and then the construction workers are going to McDonald's to get something to eat, right? So they are literally going to be there, one of the first ones. So you want to pay attention to that, and then you want to pay attention to other retailers that are coming in with shopping centers, and they put a Starbucks there. That's going to be a real indicative sign. And with the city that's underdeveloped and growing, you want to pay attention to the new highways and freeways that are being developed, right? That is going to be very, very important to look at that, where those new exits are, right? And you want to be, a certain distance from there. Definitely get with us. We'll give you the details on how that works, because that's already a lot of gems that we're kind of giving you there. But we want to make sure that you're not only educated with that information, but you understand the reasoning, right? So that's why we have to have a real good detailed conversation behind it, because it gets really into the weeds when you want to understand that. But these are sort of the different things you want to look at. You want to look at the new retail, hey, where they're building those things, where schools are coming. Another sign other than retail is new DMVs, right? Okay, looking at that as well. If you go and do the research in a lot of the cities, the DMV, when that area is growing, gets there pretty early, more times than not, right? At one time here in Las Vegas, we had like one DMV. Then they put up one in Henderson. Then it was one, off of in the Southwest. And now the Southwest is a bustling area, right? And they put one in, Aliante, different places. So looking at that, looking at the growth of the colleges and universities, and so there's so many different signs where that's developing. However, you want to stay updated with things, because technology is changing a lot of those retail actions as well, right? So because we could do a lot of things online, some of those signs aren't going to be as noticeable as they were in other years because we are doing a lot of things virtually now. So you're going to have to look at different points. And that's where your expert real estate professionals can come in and kind of educate you. And you just need to let them know, like, hey, I'm looking to keep this property long term, but I'm not looking to live in this property long term. Can you make sure that I'm getting in an area that's going to get me, a certain value, what we call a cap rate on the rents? And, it's going to appreciate in equity, at a certain rate per year. You want to look at those things, and the real estate professionals will have statistics on, say, hey, this area grows at 5% a year versus this area grows at 10 or 12%, right? And there's going to be pros and cons of picking each area, because the area where the appreciation is higher, maybe the rents are lower, right? So you may suffer on that end. So it's going to be very difficult in the short term to get both of those things. But so you have to understand which one is going to be more important to you.
Got you. So basically, it sounds like trying to get the rent and the appreciation of the property is just not going to happen for the most part, right? It will over time, right? Over time. But as a sailor, first time purchase, right? I call Veterans for Veterans, get me to be able to get my VA home loan situated, get it to the vetted, our vetted loan officers and so on and so forth. Once we have gotten our pre-approval, we're shopping. Now, once we're shopping, we are looking for a Starbucks, we are looking for major highways, and we're always looking for construction workers at McDonald's, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. So now those are the outside components of an investor mindset. Can you give me the top 3 inside components for your home and for the investor mindset?
Absolutely. So I would say the top 3 components of an investor mindset when you're looking inside the exact property is, one, you want to look at the age of the property. Okay, so that is going to be paramount, because that's going to determine how many repairs that you're going to have to do in your future repairs, whether you need to replace a water heater versus actually replace a roof or AC unit that could be a lot more expensive. Okay, you want to look at that. You want to look at the number of bedrooms. And that's going to be very important. Typically, you want to have at least 3 or more bedrooms if you can in a property, just because, families and, when you're looking at things, that is really the core of what they're looking at. 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath properties. Okay. And third, what you want to look at is just really looking at the area of the property. I think the location is always going to be paramount there, right? So you want to survey the location. And when you're surveying the location, you just don't want to look for curb appeal and the basic factors because that's going to vary. You want to actually look at based on what your mortgage is for that property, and you want to always compare that against the rental values for those properties and kind of see where it's at. So when I'm looking at location, that's what I'm looking at there. I'm looking at that as a real key factor for me, because it can be in a lower class area, and if you're comfortable living in that area, that's fine, right? But you just have to make sure hey, if my rent is going to be $3,000 a month, how much can I rent this property out for? And I will, be honest with the veteran community right now. You may end up with a mortgage payment that is higher than a rental value. That's just how it is right now because of the interest rates are a lot higher. But you don't want to be, paying $3,000 and it's only worth $1,500, right? You want to be somewhere in that ballpark of maybe you're paying $3,000 and the rental value is, $2,200 or $2,500 if you can. You want to look at that. However, there are some other strategies that you can do to actually get more rent for a property. And, that's something that sit down with us, we can definitely work with you there.
Yeah, most definitely. And also you can also join the community, and also again, when joining the community, you have access to a lot of educational components in regards to some strategies, because at the end of the day, we want to be able to make sure that we're providing you the information, but not only the information that serves you, right? So with that said, an investor mindset, again, let's take repairs, right? We always need to consider the repairs going into the home, right? Rental versus mortgage, right? Mortgage versus rental value. That is important. If you ever get orders and you have to leave, and now your mortgage is $3,000, but you can only get $1,500 of rent, and while you're deployed, again, I'm sure, you're on deployment, so you probably can afford a little bit extra, but do you want to? Why? So that's one component as well, right? And then I guess lastly, location, right? Can't lose a location. Inside Quarks is one thing, but the locality of the area is another. So that's phenomenal. So veterans, listen, hey, that right there is probably going to go ahead and increase your financial stability and wealth about 20 to 30%, if not more, depending on what location you're in. So you guys can thank us later.
Yeah, definitely could thank us later on that, because all these things are very important. And as far as the rental aspect of it, for our community, and everybody that's watching this I'm assuming that you're all gonna join the community, right? Because I'm gonna give you some real good gems right now. So if you haven't liked or subscribed, definitely do that, and also join the community. You could see the information on the screen. But when you are renting out the property, and actually just produced a video where we talked about this in specific for Las Vegas, but I'll give this gem for all veterans, because in case if you're not interested in Las Vegas, you're probably not watching that video. But something I talked about there is that the different ways you could actually rent out your property. Sometimes you can look into different short-term rentals, right? And a lot of times in short-term rentals, they're just thinking Airbnb style rentals, right? But you can also look into renting out your property to traveling nurses and traveling professionals through different networks that way, and also renting out to insurance companies, right? If you're definitely being deployed somewhere, or you're relocating and say, hey, I don't need any of this furniture anyway, if you leave that property fully furnished, a nurse, a traveling physician, other professions that may be coming to live in that city for 3, 6, 9 months at a time, they're looking for those executive type housing where you could actually put your property on one of those listings, and you're going to get top dollar for that property. And another way is, again, through the insurance rentals. The insurance rental is somewhere where, let's say, my house had a flood, right? And now they have to do repairs on the whole entire property, tear up the roof, a lot of drywall everywhere. My family's not going to live there when they're doing that. That may take anywhere between 1 to 3 months to complete those repairs. So the insurance company is actually going to pay for me to live somewhere. Well, guess what they're going to do? A property that may rent out for $3,000 a month, the insurance company may be willing, and they usually are, because it's already furnished and ready to go, to pay $7,000 to $10,000 a month for that property, right? So again, there's a lot of different creative ways that you can look at renting out your properties as well. That's going to get you a lot more of that high value, but high risk, high reward, right?
No, 100%. And I can tell you one thing, those components of being able to, get more rental value for your property could be slight risky, but I can tell you one thing that's not always owning your home under the VA home loan entitlement. So when we're talking about the VA home loan entitlement and that benefit there, these are some of just astronomical ways that you can really, really forward your life in a really big way, big time way. And we will definitely can uncover and unlock and basically speak with a little bit more in depth under your personal circumstance, you can always give us a call, join the community, give us a holler. We're here to serve, and that's what we want to do. But we're talking about the highlights, right? But now we always gotta make sure that we're looking at the other side of the coin, right? So if you can give me some of the most common mistakes amongst the use of the VA home loan and what veterans should avoid, because I will tell you, veterans, the VA home loan is something so valued that a lot of financial experts and lenders kind of prey on that. So you need to know how to protect it, and you need to know how to use it, but use it correctly and wisely. That's why we always have vetted, VA home loan experts. So, but yeah, if you can go ahead and give us some of the most common mistakes to avoid.
3 of the most common mistakes to avoid would be not considering all your different housing options. So when we talked about the multifamily, we talk about mixed use properties, and even looking at condos and townhomes, right? Not considering all of those different options. And then also underestimating cost. Okay. So whether you're looking at a new traditional home or even a condo and different things of that nature, there's going to be other types of closing costs and different things associated there that you may have not accounted for, but also relocation and moving costs, right? You need to consider those things as well. So overlooking all of those different things, HOA fees, and then also, I know this is very, sensitive to a lot of our folks in San Diego, is the Melrose and all those other different taxes and fees. And the fact that, especially if you're getting a new home, it may not be taxed properly included in your mortgage. So overlooking that. And then also skipping the pre-approval when you are qualifying for the home, not really taking a look at that and doing everything in your due diligence to really understand what goes into that pre-approval. So those are the 3 things, and we'll kind of unpack those things a little bit more, but wanted to just give you those different highlights here now.
This is coming from someone who have purchased multiple homes, okay? I've had some of the best circumstantial situations and of a purchase, and I've had some of the worst, right? I've been on both ends of it. But I'll tell you this, your pre-approval is not what you can afford. I will repeat, your pre-approval is not what you can afford. It is what a lender thinks that you will be able to afford, not comfortably. You could be stretching yourself. However, that is the means of their approval.
Absolutely, because they're looking at a snapshot of where you are when you apply for that loan. So you could have just paid off all your credit cards. You could not have an auto loan. And once you purchase that home, you plan on buying a new car. You're just going to do that, right? So that's not really indicative of what you can really afford. And also maybe you might have kids going to college and different things of that nature. They're not considering that. And, something that I've noticed through my professional career in real estate that seems very basic for lenders to do that they don't do a lot of times is they don't actually associate a pre-approval amount with the actual loan estimate of the payment that the active duty service member or veteran is going to pay on a monthly basis. So they'll tell you qualify for a $700,000 home, but they won't tell you that that's going to be $7,000 a month, right? They won't tell you that. They're just saying, hey, you qualify for $700,000, and you start looking at $700,000 homes, and you don't know until you looked at the property, you went under contract, planned on buying that offer was accepted, you get that loan estimate, and you're like, wait, $7,000 a month? I only planned on paying $4,000 a month. And they're like, well, wait, huh? It's like, well, it's so basic to just say, hey, based on what the interest rates are, because they looked at the interest rates when they quoted you to be approved for $700,000, so they know what ballpark rate they looked at, and taxes and insurance, they included all that in there, even factored in some room for possible home associations, right? But they don't tell you what that mortgage payment amount is, which is like, that's so basic, man. Tell this person that this house is going to cost X amount a month before they get all big-eyed and go in there and they go and get a property. And now they like, well, wait a minute. I didn't plan on paying this amount a month because I do plan on buying a car. I do plan on having a certain amount for savings and different things of that nature. So that is going to be very basic, that you want to make sure like, hey, I'm approved for $700,000. What is that mortgage payment going to look like every month?
Yeah. So getting that pre-approval, it is exciting. It is exciting. Controlled emotions throughout this process is going to be needed, right? You are going to go through a roller coaster of emotions from the all the way up having a pre-approval. It's your first time purchase. Hey, I got approved for $500,000, and you live in again, Texas, somewhere in Texas that's underdeveloped, and you're just that this property that you're looking at and that you're going to purchase is going to be a phenomenal purchase for you and your family. So now we understand the actual environment that we're in, right? Well, what does the interest rate look like? Well, understanding this, obviously, most do not take finance classes, right? When we're in high school, understanding taxes, understanding financial literacy and certain components. So the interest rate is always going to obviously impact your amount of payment, your APR, and so on and so forth. So with that understanding of your interest rate, you going from 5% to 7%, that can be a difference of $200-$300 to $700. We don't know, depending on the purchase price of the home. So your pre-approval is very, very important. When you are understanding that pre-approval, please, for your sake and ours, because we serve the veteran community, we want to see you guys successful, make sure you're asking for an underwritten pre-approval. They're going to tell you, don't worry about it. We're going to go ahead and get everything. We don't necessarily need it. Do not move forward unless you know that you have an underwritten pre-approval. What does that exactly mean? Well, having an underwritten pre-approval has been through your actual documents, financial outline or snapshot of has been approved by not only the first line of defense of the loan officer, but also has been approved by the underwriter. That's the person that gives the say-so. Okay, you have a digital underwriter, and you have the actual underwriter who stamps your approval for your financial success to get into your home. That is very important. I say that because you are then going to be able to unlock your payment, your interest rate, your taxes, assumed HOA, assumed supplemental taxes possibly. Every question will then start to unravel. Please make sure you do so. It's going to save you the stress that you should never even went through, and you should have been educated on through that process anyway. We are here to, as we go through the process, you're educated line by line to make sure you're provided each aspect of components. So we're here to serve. Make sure you go ahead and ask for that.
Definitely. You want to ask for that. And it just gets into understanding all of the costs, right, associated with things. And, Kenneth, I know you've purchased multiple properties, to date, utilizing a VA loan. So it's definitely possible to do that. And of course, there's no down payment, right? But now when you purchase your first home with the VA loan, did they kind of tell you about, hey, the closing costs, to think about that, and also, having to pay for inspections and appraisals and all of those different things? Those were a lot of hidden costs kind of associated with that purchase, correct?
I personally, purchasing my first home, when my wife and I were going into this purchase, I would tell you now that I was just excited to be approved. I didn't care of the cost. I didn't care about interest rates. I didn't care about a down payment. What are the closing costs? I didn't know what closing costs. I had no clue what a closing cost was. Who cares? The VA, zero down. I don't have to pay anything. That assumption of a zero down and you're just walking to a home and you don't pay any considerable costs is not how it works. So with that, listen, there's so many different hidden costs that you're going to be uncovering as a first-time home buyer. Closing costs, right? Again, rule of thumb, typically about 2.3%, somewhere around there.
Exactly, about 2 to 3% of the loan amount is what you want to have budgeted for closing costs, which is going to be some initial out-of-pocket costs as far as the appraisal and inspections, but also paying the title company, paying the escrow company, any kind of lender fees. And now we actually have the buyer broker fees, which we have a video about that, right? And there's a lot of costs there. That can be thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars that you have to pay there. However, you are not on your own with those, right? So what you want to do is you want to educate yourself with your local programs. There may be different down payment assistance programs that you can utilize, especially as a first-time home buyer. However, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer to qualify for all down payment assistance programs. And even though they call it down payment assistance, it's not just for the down payment, okay? You can utilize those funds a lot of time to pay those closing costs, right? And then another gem that I'm going to give you here today is that let's say you have some credit card debt that if that were to be paid off, or an auto loan, if that were to be paid off, you can qualify for a larger home, right? So you can actually lump that into your closing cost, okay? So let's say you have $10,000 or $15,000 in an auto loan or in credit card debt, and you want that paid off at close of escrow. Well, you can negotiate that into that contract to be paid off, and that would allow you to subsequently qualify for more home if you're able to do so, right? So many different strategies there. And now with there being a buyer broker fee, you don't necessarily have to worry about paying that, okay? The seller can actually pay your buyer broker commission, which is the agent that's representing you, and that will not affect the 4% closing costs that the VA allows for seller concessions. Those are going to be two separate types of costs there, right? So essentially, you can go into the home with zero down, like advertised, meaning you're not paying any down payment and you're not paying closing costs, but those other costs need to be negotiated into the deal to be able to make that possible. But the cost that you need to make sure that you have is that money for the inspection and the appraisal, because those are going to be upfront costs that you can essentially get reimbursed for, but you're going to have to pay that. And then you may have to have what we call an earnest money deposit that can be anywhere between, on average, about 1% of the loan value or the actual price of the home. And the problem is sellers charge whatever they want for that EMD, that loan, that earnest money deposit. So it should be 1%. So for example, $500,000 home, you would think it's going to be $5,000, but they may ask for 10 or 15. But again, if you don't have that, it can be negotiable, right? Yeah. Especially for a VA loan borrower, because they know you have that ironclad stamp from the Department of Veteran Affairs that is backing that loan and guaranteeing your ability to close. And if you're using what Kenneth just alluded to and talked about regarding making sure you're getting a conditional underwritten loan, then you're really going to be able to have a very much so an advantage when closing on that property.
I do want to say, let's go ahead and dispel one myth. The Department of Veterans Affairs does not actually provide the loan. They're not the lender, okay? They are just guaranteeing your loan. What does that mean? That they're guaranteeing that if you were to default on your loan, they will, again, be a portion of your loan will be backed by the government. That's literally typically about 25% is going to be backed by the government to be able to pay that lender. Okay, so that is a huge component. All right, so but that again, that's generally speaking. So we want to make sure that is really focused on.
No, absolutely. So definitely, if you're ready to explore your options in purchasing a home, you can definitely visit us here at our link where we can provide you with a consultation all over the country where we have real estate professionals that work with veterans and active duty service members and with that VA loan product every day. So they're giving you the most up-to-date information. And if you're looking to say, hey, you know what? I just want to educate myself more on the process. Well, we have our veteran community and we have a lot of resources as well. I know here we talked about investing in real estate. Well, we have a VA loan for investor handbook and guide. So you can actually get that ebook and you can also join our community at the same time by visiting our website at vetsforvetsinfo.com. The information is in the description, and if you're watching, it's on screen as well. So definitely, we're here to cover all facets, whether you're just looking to educate or if you're looking for qualified professionals in your area, we would love to be a resource and provide you with both the education and also the educated professionals.
Yeah, true indeed. True indeed. Listen, veterans, if you're ready to make your 2025 an unforgettable one, if you're focused in 2025, if you want to change your life in 2025, if you want the information and also the support in 2025, I suggest you go ahead and click the link now. The time is now. So if you're ready, click the link. We will go ahead and be in the community. There is no one representing us in the community. You are speaking to us in the community. All right. So with that being said, veterans, let's start your pathway to success now. Any components or any aspects of the benefit world, we're here to serve. Go ahead and click that link now.
And as we get into our next segment, where we're going to be talking about entrepreneurial success for active duty service members and veterans for 2025, stay tuned, prepare to compete. See you on the next one.